Welcome to the Intercut Podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he's in the middle of turning a fucking tanker. It's Arturo Zurita.
I would have accepted that one. You'll soon get your nut. So many. Just every insult in this show is a viable one for this one. But we got a special guest.
Yeah, we have to do this with our favorite slime puppy. Thanks for joining us again, Karsten Runquist. What's going on, Karsten?
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me back.
For sure, dude.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone better to talk about maybe TV's best show. Is that what we landed on when we were talking about this, Karsten? This is the best show going on TV right now?
It's the best.
Succession, which is coming back for its third juicy season on HBO. Absolutely cannot wait. We will probably be talking about that a lot more on upcoming Intercut shows, but we wanted to talk about where we're at so far and break down the best character on our Succession character bracket. So in a little, we will talk about Kendall, Logan, and the extended Waystar Royco family. But first, make sure you're subscribed to the Intercut Podcast, either the video podcast on youtube.com/intercutpod or the audio podcast available on most podcatchers. Also, follow Intercut on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We are at IntercutPod. That's at IntercutPod. That's short for podcast. Also, make sure you go to Intercut Pod on Patreon if you'd like to support the show for as little as $1 per month. We really appreciate that. And head over to iTunes to give us a 5-star review. That really helps push the show. Whenever we get a new 5-star review of the podcast, it makes me happier than listening to one of Nicholas Bertel's scores.
It's true.
Karsten, did we make a mistake not putting Nicholas Bertel's score as one of the best characters on Succession? Because it really might be.
That's a great point. It's one of the best characters in the show, by far.
Comes in, changes the dynamic of a scene, makes you feel things. So good. It's good.
Amazing.
Anyway, we are really excited for the third season of Succession, as we mentioned, and we want to break down which character is the best character from Succession, because it's an ensemble show. It's a large family with a bunch of great supporting players, but like, which person really makes you the most excited from this great array of talent? I think there's a couple ways to think about this too. You know, are we going for the funniest character, the one who we think is going to ultimately win out in this Game of Thronesian struggle for power? Or are we just talking about the character with the best scenes? Art, what do you think? What should be like the criteria for who is winning in our Succession character bracket?
Oof. I think it's a combination of all those things, especially because you look at everybody here. I believe all of them, to a degree, want to succeed. They want to be able to get the next thing. I figured it's also on like which one of these characters, considering how ensemble it is, would be able to carry an episode by themselves. That I would sit and be like, all right, they're the only ones who are leading this episode. I'm good with that. And I have a couple that I hope make it all the way through, and maybe even get a solo episode in season 3. What about y'all?
Interesting. Karsten, what do you think?
I feel the same way. Yeah, I've thought about this a lot already, and I already know that there's like 2 people that are probably going to end up battling it out in the end. And I'm so conflicted. I still don't fully know where this is going to go. And it's going to hurt either way because, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely going to be killing some darlings here, because it's not a show where I feel like there's some bad characters and I'm waiting for the good ones to show up. Like I'm happy with every scene and with every recurring face that shows back up. But maybe there's a couple that we're a little more happy about here.
Yeah.
So the way that the bracket is set up, which you can check out by, I'll post it on our social media, or it'll be in the video if you're watching on YouTube. We've got this sort of entry round with a bunch of the supporting characters, a bunch of the recurring characters fighting for a space to make it to the final 16, I think it is, against the 8 main characters, the 7 members of the Roy family: Greg, Roman, Logan, Kendall, Tom, Connor, and Shiv. We're counting Tom. and Gerri, because
be so
Gerri
happy.
definitely deserves a spot in that top 8.
Thank you.
We're not gonna.
All right, I feel comfortable
We're
already.
not gonna even pretend that she's one of those
There we
recurring
go.
characters. She's elevated herself at this point. All right,
Like the bracket
so
already.
Let's start things off with a couple of big power players who come in from the outside and shake the foundations of Waystar Royco. Let's go with Gil versus Rhea. So Gil, of course, the Democratic presidential candidate who once had Shiv in his employ and takes Waystar Royco to court. He, of course, is the actual deliverer of the iconic "You can't make a tomlet without breaking some Greg's" line. And then you have Rhea, played by Holly Hunter, like the first, I think, of the big Succession guest stars that we're going to get a lot more of, it sounds like, in season 3, who, through a smile is able to pull some puppet strings on the family. Art, why don't you start us off? Are you going with Gil or Rhea?
Honestly, I know that you were saying that there's no terrible characters. They're all horrible people. They are all terrible individuals in and of themselves, right?
Good point.
Right?
Good point. Worth making.
And I have to go for Gil. I think that he has had some of the best one-on-ones with some of the characters. I mean, one of the sequences that he had with Roy at the staircase when they were just going at each other, I think that's one of the best interactions. Rhea's really good. But I'm going to have to go with Gil for this one. And that's it. This is the only time I will vote for Gil.
I will also be going for Gil. I'll be honest. Gil, I love how he's like, and I don't know if you brought this up, that he's kind of like their take on Bernie Sanders in the show,
Yeah.
and I think it's hilarious because he's just a really aggressive dude behind the scenes, and like he's very threatening, and again, like you said,
And it is very interesting to also see like the more like democratic political figure also be treated with the same kind of viciousness behind the scenes.
totally,
You know?
yeah. It just, and obviously the courtroom scene. He just like he's the perfect guy to kind of like lead that whole Greg and Tom disaster. And it's nothing against Rhea. I just think like he's so much more fun to watch than Rhea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe after season 3.
Yeah.
Maybe after season 3.
Yeah. Eric Bogosian's Gil wins that first round. Let's go to the matchup between Frank Vernon and Lawrence Yee. Frank, the often faces the brunt of bad Waystar Royco actions. He's kind of served as Kendall's surrogate dad and is just thrown responsibility and thrown big titles and then responsibility for bad decisions over and over again, and just kind of like takes it throughout.
Yeah.
Versus Lawrence Yee, who I think they really build up to be a huge part of the show if you rewatch like the beginning or the pilot, and then he kind of isn't.
That's the thing. Yeah.
That big threat. The pilot ends with him being like, without daddy around to protect you, I'm going to eat you all up one by fucking one. And then he basically like drops one damning article and then his company gets bought out. I'm going to go with Frank Vernon here. I don't know if either of you feel differently about the matchup.
He gets his nut.
Yeah, Frank by far. Lawrence is honestly one of my least favorite characters. He's so annoying and uncool. Like he's annoying in like a bad guy, but not in any like redeeming way. I don't. And Frank is hilarious anytime he disagrees with something, and he's just like, no, obviously not. And then he like does it anyways, and I just think that's he's hilarious.
And he has some of the weirdest scenes too, like in the pilot when he does the whole like, "Oh, I'm gonna take the baseball bat from you." I'm just kidding, and you're like, "Did they just leave the scene in on accident?" That's when I knew Succession was gonna be a little bit different. It was specifically with that Frank sequence there, where they're just catching the most awkward moments of these characters as well. So poor Frank too. By season 2, poor Frank. But not really.
Yeah.
They're all terrible.
Yeah, not literally poor, just more maybe like metaphorically poor Frank.
Yeah, I think Frank's okay.
All right, the next matchup is Naomi Pierce versus Willa, a couple girlfriends of Naomi Pierce is the child of the Pierce family that also has her drug issues, which ends up bringing her closer to Kendall, and they have a couple of sweet romantic moments together before Kendall ends up shitting in the bed, literally. And then Willa, the tag along for Connor, who definitely feels like the most fish out of water in this family. You know, she is just an aspiring actress who's then thrown into the world of multi-billionaires. And, you know, Willa, I think, has a lot of really great moments at trying to deal with things at Connor's side, particularly helping him through Mo's eulogy. Just one of my favorite moments from Succession. Karsten, what are you going to go with, Naomi or Willa?
Willa, by far. I mean, Naomi's a great character, and it, like, based on the trailers, I feel like she's going to have a bigger part to play in season 3. But Willa, like you said, she's one of the most normal characters in the show, weirdly enough. And for her to be paired with Connor, who's probably the most freakish out of everybody, like, it's such a perfect pairing. And yeah, I empathize with Willa more than most characters in the show.
Yeah, you have to go with the future first lady herself.
Exactly, yeah.
She don't even know it. She doesn't even know what she's along for the ride for. She just says yes, gets her sandbags to make her play, and goes with it.
Yep.
Yeah, Naomi might develop into a more interesting character as we go into season 3 and beyond, but Willa's already had her time to shine so far on the show, so it's a good one. Definitely. All right, let's go with the matchup between a couple Waystar Royco employees, Karl versus Karolina. Karl is sort of one of the executives who gets batted around in season 2. He's the third boar on the floor, and there's a lot of scenes where he's teased mockingly by Roman, which, you know, allows Roman some of his best moments, versus Karolina, who is the PR exec that's often at Kendall's side or trying to sweep up their messes and draft, you know, front-facing statements for, like, these wild narcissists. I kind of feel like Karl has been involved in better scenes. So even though I don't know if I have, like, the strongest read on either of their characters, I would go Karl here. But Art, am I wrong? Are you going to go with Karolina?
I feel like Karolina is like early Gerri. I could be just overhyping her up, because, like, Jerry's been there with them for a while, right? So it's like I feel like Karolina's coming in at that point where she's at that just younger stage of being with the family and is going to grow up with them the same way. That said, I agree with you. Homie's had more. So I'm going to go with Karl.
Yeah.
He's just creepy. I don't know why he creeps me the most. I feel he's got more skeletons in his closet than they're making it seem. So
yeah.
I feel like I'm forgetting the exact thing they say now, but there is some sort of reference to his maybe more nefarious nature.
100%.
At some point.
He's the family's hitman.
Yeah, none of these people is that clean. Are that clean? Anyway. So we'll go with Karl there. Got a couple more matchups in this first round. Let's go to Ewan Roy versus Nate. Ewan Roy, the sort of self-outcasted member of the Roy family, Logan's brother. Sorry, my dog is, like, making so much noise.
He's a Ewan fan.
He clearly has a lot of disdain for this whole, like, backstabby office politics, and he lets it be known whenever he's forced to come to one of the board meetings. He has the pretty savage line, the Logan Roy School of Journalism, what's next, the Jack the Ripper Women's Health Clinic. There's also Nate, who does everything he can to drive a wedge between Shiv and Tom. Like, maybe no character has been less respectful of a potential engagement than Nate on this show. I am going to go with Ewan Roy here, maybe only in part because, like, it's James fucking Cromwell, who is one of just an absolute awesome actor. And, you know, whenever he shows up, I think he shifts the balance in the room. So, yeah, I'm going with Ewan. Karsten, what do you think?
Yeah, this is the first one that kind of hurts because I do really like Nate. He is the best face to hate because it's like the perfect rival for Tom because he's so cool and kind of chill, and Tom's But Ewan Roy is an amazing character, and yeah, I like you said, great performance, and yeah, I just love Ewan Roy a lot more.
Nate's got to put the wine back into the wine bottle and get the hell out of here.
That is one of the best scenes in the entire show.
Ewan for sure.
Yeah. All right, Stewy Hosseini versus Lady Caroline Collingwood. This is Kendall's best friend, ? Versus Kendall's mother, both of whom are not nearly as loyal to him as you would expect from those roles in his life. Stewy is often involved is kind of like a consultant for Kendall until he becomes a bit of a rival in business for Kendall. So he's also got some really darkly delivered lines. Maybe the best one of which is, I guess if you didn't have something going on deals-wise, it's kind of dead in the water now, right? Like some of those women that went on those cruises.
Yeah.
But then there's also Lady Caroline, who's savage in her own right, like going around Shiv's wedding asking how long people think the marriage will last.
Strong.
Yeah.
Karsten, who are you choosing between these two people who have not done well by Kendall? Let's be honest.
I was just about to say, like, great job, whichever one of you paired this bracket together, because this is an excellent matchup. It's probably Stewy, to be honest. This is another case where I feel like Lady Caroline will have like a bigger role in the next season, because I feel like they kind of tease at her just how brutal she is. But, you know, Stewy is one of the few characters in the show that's willing to like go at the Roys and like really punch back. And he always kind of comes out winning, in my opinion. Like he's very sharp. So obviously Stewy, I think he's such an essential part of the show. Yeah,
I agree. I think the mom, she's only had a few episodes, if not like only one, the one with the wedding.
Yeah.
So and that's in season 2 as well, if I'm not mistaken. So like we've only gotten a little bit of her. She is way more harsh than I thought she was going to be. Like you think you've already met the meanest place, and you're like, well, we haven't met their mom yet.
Yeah.
And then you're like, of course this would be their mom. So she has the potential to be just she's already a bulldozer, but like she can be really good. But I agree with Karsten that I think that Stewy has found some of the most interesting character arcs where, like you said, Zach, they're friends, then they're not friends. It's always interesting to see what role he's going to play in that particular episode, hell, in a particular scene, because it switches so much. So I always enjoy seeing Stewy on scene. Always got a nice clear-cut beer.
Stewy adds a really interesting dynamic to the show, because even when like Kendall reappears in season 2 and they're at odds with each other, you can tell there still is a part of him that's like, there's clearly something wrong with my friend, and I want to at least ask that he's okay, even as I'm, killing him in some deal. But I really like the dynamic between them. Stewie's had a lot of really great lines, so I'm happy to see more of Lady Caroline, but let's go with Stewy here. Now it's a matchup between two matriarchs, Nan Pierce, played by Cherry Jones, versus Marcia Roy, who I feel like is operating a little bit in the shadows on this show. They're definitely, they keep hinting at her ultimate power over Logan and whether or not she's really like pulling these strings. Like, let's not forget that the whole show started over Logan trying to give her essentially an extra seat on the board should he die. So there's potentially a world where she ends up maybe the most powerful person in this whole bracket. Are you going to go with Marcia or Nan?
No, I looked through the bracket. This is without a doubt, even in potential future ones, the hardest one in my personal opinion. I agree with you that Marcia is one of the secretly best characters in the show. The way that she's just doing stuff in the background, but even more so the way she sets characters straight. That one episode when they're all at the therapy house and everyone comes back and she just yells at every single one by one, including Shiv, and putting her in her place shows me that Marcia's got a lot more in the background. Nan's in it for like 2 episodes though. And the dominance that she shows over the family, telling them what they're going to do. I am really split between these two. But I'm going to lean towards Marcia because I still feel that they are holding something there. But the fact that Nan's in only a couple of episodes shows how great of a character she was as well.
Yeah.
But I think Marcia.
Definitely. Karsten?
Yeah, it's a tough one for me too. I wouldn't be surprised if like Marcia, who I'm forgetting what her actress's name is, but if she's the only one that was told like how the whole show plays out and knows who comes out on top,
Right?
Because she kind of.
By the way, her name is Hayam Abbas.
She's in Rami too, right? She's been killing it.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been rewatching the show and I forget, kind of like you said, how much like authority she has in these first few episodes, and she's like a very powerful character that you kind of forget about, and I think the show is setting it up perfectly for her to like kind of come back and just stab someone really hard in the back because she's
Absolutely.
terrifying, and I think she's perfect.
Yeah, no disrespect to Nan Pierce, who I think it's really interesting the way they kind of portray her as like outwardly the opposite of Logan, even if maybe more inwardly they're very similar. You know, she quotes Shakespeare and she portrays herself as like a kind, loving intellectual who has a warm family dynamic, but there's still that savageness there. Great performance. I'm gonna go with Marcia too because there's just something really interesting there. Like again, you talked about how there's seeds of it there early. I was rewatching and I love that moment when they're all at the hospital and she sends Greg away and says like, I don't need all these flies buzzing around. Yeah. It's perfect. So good.
She owns that whole episode, to be honest.
Yeah. Our last first round matchup is Tabitha versus Sophie and Iverson Roy. Tabitha, the kind of girlfriend with, I guess, although they're not so romantically involved, her and Roman, played by Caitlin Fitzgerald, who I think is very darkly funny when she gets the opportunity to be here, versus Kendall's children, Sophie and Iverson Roy. Not that they have a very big part to play in the show, although there are their moments. There's, of course, the moment where Logan hits, I think it's Iverson. I just think it's absolutely hysterical that Kendall clearly named his son after Allen Iverson. Just a thing that's not spoken aloud, but you know from who Kendall is as a character, that's absolutely what happened.
That's hilarious.
Art, where do you go with here?
The kids, again, you know, they have their succession stuff that they'll have in the future, but I really enjoyed Tabitha's dynamic, especially in the last season. I think a lot of the scenes that they have are hilarious, and I hope that she sticks around longer than some of the other characters, actually. I really do like her character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I fully
Karsten?
agree. I was wondering why you put Sophie and Iverson over Rava in this spot, but I guess Rava doesn't get that much.
It was literally to make my Iverson joke, but if we want to talk about Rava for a second
that.
here, I kind of think that Rava has had like maybe a little bit of a smaller role than I expected to. She has her moments, but I kind of think I'd even go with Tabitha over Rava here. I really like so. Tabitha's dynamic with Roman. I hope, as much as I love the Roman Gerri thing, I hope that doesn't mean that they're pushing Tabitha out in some way.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. I mean, all that said, I think Tabitha definitely wins this round. Obviously, she's also very good at putting Roman in his place, which is always very fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so that does it for the first round. We get to the power players of the bracket. Let's start it out with a matchup between foes on Capitol Hill, Greg, Hirsch, and Gil. Now, we have a lot of good things to say about that Eric Bogosian performance, but it's Greg, it's cousin Greg. I don't know if anybody here wants to go against the family.
It's Greg, bro. I want to make movies like Greg.
Yeah, it's Greg.
It's obviously Greg.
Next matchup is between Frank, Vernon, and Gerri Kellman, probably the two most powerful Waystar employees outside of the Roy family themselves. Definitely going to be one of the more heartbreaking choices here. Karsten, what are you going to go with?
I think it's only like it's we have to be consistent and like give Frank an L here. He just stays taking L's, and he's gonna take another one here.
100%.
Because Gerri is just honestly one of the best characters in the show. And yeah, gotta pick Gerri.
Yeah, it's a shame that he has to match such a formidable foe, but yeah, Gerri is so lovable on this. Roman versus Willa. I really do love Willa's scenes, but it's hard to go against the guy who has maybe the most hilarious line readings on this show. Like Kieran Culkin's performance is just so funny. Every choice he makes is so bizarre, and he has created a character who's just such an oddball, such like a unexpected, pleasant surprise. Maybe not so pleasant all the time, but like very funny in every scene. I think we're all gonna go with Roman here, right?
100,
Definitely.
Yeah. Karl versus Logan Roy. This one's easy.
Yeah, he's
Gotta go.
Karl's the one who does it.
Obviously, Karl.
It's Logan.
Next matchup is Kendall versus Ewan, and again, we had a lot of nice things to say about Ewan, but we're talking about Jeremy Strong, the anchor of this whole show. Like Kendall definitely gets a chance to win this whole bracket, so I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to go against him in this round.
Nope.
No.
Stewy versus Tom, two characters that I don't think have ever interacted, but now I desperately want to see have a scene opposite each other. Like, is there a guy who is more comfortable in his skin versus a guy who's less comfortable in his skin on this show?
That's yeah.
Yeah,
They're a
honestly.
great pair.
It just has to be Tom for the shenanigans that he gets through. Like, I don't know how a character can bug you so much and you want to see him get embarrassed. And then he gets too embarrassed and somehow the show makes you feel bad for him. And then he opens his mouth and you're like, it's Tom. Why did I feel bad for him? You know? And they get me every other episode with feeling sorry for this man and then reminding me exactly what kind of a goofball he is. He kills his performance as Tom, so I want to see more Stewy.
If there is like definitely,
But Tom.
If there is like a particular gift that the writers of this show have, it's at riding that line between like reminding you that these are terrible people, but then giving you enough to kind of feel bad for what they have to deal with. And it's just, I guess it's one of the things that makes the show so dramatically interesting. Like, yes, you can remove yourself from the situation and recognize how dastardly a lot of their business dealings are, but like they're still making a show about people, and I guess like it's easy enough to empathize with some of those situations, even if they're done in the most like luxurious surroundings, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going with Tom. I think that's pretty easy. This is an interesting matchup. Connor Roy versus Marcia Roy. Like I feel like Marcia does have kind of like a kindness for Connor. She, frequently is encouraging Logan to be nicer to Connor. I wonder if that's like a potential team up of sorts in terms of power dynamics in the future. I still think that Connor is just so delightfully goofy in his different undertakings. Whether it's yelling about the icy icy butter while everybody's ripping their dinner rolls, or his run for president. The Connor is just such an entertaining figure. So I'm going to go with Connor. I figure both of you are too.
I'm going with Marcia.
Yeah. Whoa.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I truly believe that matchup right there, I wasn't kidding, that they would go a long way for me. I'm going Marcia. I think Marcia's a better character than Connor.
Interesting.
Connor was interested in politics at a very young age, so I honestly, I've been very vocal with my friends about this, that Connor, and I guess you could argue the same for Marcia, Connor's going to be a very important character in the next season.
Yeah, I can see
also,
that.
the way they hinted at it in the teaser, when he's like, there's like this sit down with him and Logan, where he's kind of like talking about how shitty everybody else is. And I'm just like, oh my God, is Connor like gonna... Because he's always just been like a joke to them.
Is he making his play?
Yeah, and I'm like, I feel like he sets himself up, especially in the end of season 2, when Logan just annihilates all of his presidential plans, and it's like, you're an embarrassment to this family. And it's so tragic, but also hilarious. After everything he's done, he's like, Connor, stop. I'm just like, I feel like the perfect ingredients have gone into making him like very like he like there's some sort of like revenge that he wants, and I'm sorry, Art, but I'm gonna have to go with Connor.
Marcia will live on.
This might be the hardest of this round's matchups because we are talking about like the main ensemble versus some of the more recurring players, but yeah, we'll see what Marcia ends up planning, but also we'll see what Connor ends up planning. Yeah. Our last matchup is Tabitha versus Shiv.
Come on now.
And again, Shiv.
Come on now.
I don't think it's going to be an argument here.
Not an argument at all.
So yeah, Sarah snook into the next round. All right, we are down to the main 8, the power players from the start. Not really any surprises. Now it's going to be a lot of tough decisions. Let's start it out with Greg Hirsch versus Gerri Kellman. Speaking of power dynamics, I kind of feel like Greg, he's sort of been the outsider for a little bit, and I think they'll probably start really giving him some more sway in these upcoming seasons. It feels like as he works his way more and more into the family and continues to kind of hold on certain secrets, like there's a looming Greg move out there. But Gerri's literally got her, maybe not literally, but at least figuratively got her hands around one of the Roy's balls. The dynamic between her and Roman for the upcoming season is going to be maybe the most interesting one to follow. Karsten, I'm going to make you have the hard decision first.
God.
Are you going to go with Greg, or are you going to go with Gerri?
I mean, at the end of the day, obviously, Greg. It really does hurt, and I might regret this after watching season 3, seeing where they take Gerri, but Greg is like, for a lot of the same reasons I just said about like Connor, he's been set up to be like a very interesting person to watch because of just how he was like he was kind of wrapped up in things earlier in like a funny way, and now it's like he's up there with Kendall
some leverage
in a lot of which makes it's both hilarious in my opinion and also very exciting. So I gotta go with Greg.
I gotta go with Gerri, my second, actually not even second, I believe tied with my favorite character on this show. That's how good of a character I think Gerri is. Greg's great. That man just had a baller. He's part of what made the season 2 finale so great. He's right there with his little papers. Greg will always be the fan favorite. He's fantastic. Gerri is killer, man. I have to go Gerri all the way. Every scene with her, there's like 3 things happening simultaneous. It's what you're seeing, it's what the other character is taking, and then what's really going on in Jerry's mind. I love her character so much. It's got to be Gerri for me. Zachary.
Worth keeping in mind with Gerri, something very interesting about her character, originally written to be played by a man, and then you have this awesome J. Cameron Smith performance just totally redefining her relationship with the show, and I think opening up some paths for her character. I think sometimes she's seen as maybe more of the like uptight, or like, maybe not uptight, but like buttoned up would maybe be a better way to put it, of the people on the show. And then she has those savage lines, like when she tells Tom that she's having a sexual relationship with his mother and that she talks in her sleep. Gerri, very surprising, a lot of fun. I think ultimately I might just give this to like the Nick Braun performance of Greg.
It's fair.
He's maybe the most, his dynamic on the show, because he's so not put together and so nervous, just changes every scene because he's such a sore thumb in this collection. So narrowly, I will give this one to Greg, but they're both awesome characters.
It hurts.
Okay. Roman Roy versus Logan Roy. This one is another really tough matchup. I don't even know where to begin with this one. Roman has just the craziest lines on this show. I love the part when he says to Kendall, I think what he meant to say is that he wished Mom gave birth to a can opener because at least then it would be useful. Some of those deliveries from Kieran Culkin are amazing, but then that Logan Roy performance from Brian Cox is just so powerful. Like he really is like the big dog in the room. You know, he of course has like the lines like sometimes it is a big dick competition to really let you know like what we're dealing with here in Succession. Art, where are you going to go between Roman and Logan?
I'd say besides the Marcia Nan one, this would be the second hardest one because you have two complete polar opposites. You have the serious deliver, then you have the person who you just don't know what's going to come out of his mouth next. But only one of these dudes has two thumbs and is going on to the next round, and that's got to be the boy Roman. It's very difficult, and on another day I would say Logan. I really would. In an hour we could do this again, I might say Logan. But damn, does Roman's never boring when he's on screen.
That is true.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, and if we are talking about like who has the best scenes, Roman always comes in and creates some chaos.
Every episode.
Yeah.
Karsten, what do you think?
Yeah, this one is also very, very tough because, you know, I think I'm just going with Roman because he's one of the most complex characters in the show too. He's got a very interesting background with his father that has only been hinted at a few times. I think one of the most like intense and one of the best like acted scenes in the show, I just retweeted it a few days ago, is when Logan slaps Roman and Kendall's like, "Don't touch him." And that is a very intense moment for me. It feels like very real and
a very telling moment.
Yeah, so much is said, and I think it just makes me think a lot about Roman's character. Also, his like fetishes, like there's a lot to dissect with everything about him.
Like corpses don't move.
Yeah. The whole masturbation thing. I'm just like he's such an interesting and disturbed person, and yeah, I feel like they haven't even scratched the surface of who he is. And obviously, I mean, Logan's also very insane, yeah. But, you know, I just feel like there's a lot more to Roman that we don't know about yet. Whereas Logan is like, he really is just a piece of shit. I'm sure there's more to him, obviously, but yeah.
Roman also has that sequence with his brother where he saves him.
Yeah.
Like that, I think that's coupled with the slap scene as well. Like that kind of shows you how deep the relationship goes, even when it's not said that they're still there for each other.
Yeah.
Logan does not care.
No.
Clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, the most intriguing thing about Logan, I think, is like that little moment in the end of season 2 when Kendall has screwed him over publicly, and he kind of has that little smile. Because, like, you know that's the stuff that Logan really likes. Like, he has been wanting to see that savageness, that ruthlessness in terms of a business leader from one of his kids, and that the ultimate act of love from him, or in his eyes at least, would be an act of betrayal, I think is very interesting. So, I don't know. It's a really interesting character, but like you both are saying, I think Roman is so complex and so much fun, too, that I would also go with Roman here. Wow. So we're going 3-0 on Roman against Logan. The dinosaur had one last roar at the meteor before it wiped him out in this sense. All right. Kendall versus Tom, maybe two of the of the more like the easier to root for characters on this show, despite themselves. They get in their way a lot. Kendall, of course, you know, our main figure on the show, just a really interesting, complex character. You talked about how Roman, Karsten, you talked about how Roman in the last round is a very interesting interpersonal life, and there's clearly a lot below the surface there. I think we do get so much interesting stuff below the surface from Kendall as well, you know, beyond his drug use and the dynamic between him and Rhea and his kids, how there's clearly been a lot of pain there too. But I love the ways in which they kind of try to make him, how he tries to defy the legacy of his father and be like the cool businessman, right? Like he listens to hip hop and he wears cool sneakers and stuff like that. L to the OG. There's a lot to really like about Kendall. There's a lot to really like about Tom, too, and how he tries to adapt and how he tries to guide Greg, too. Sorry, I almost called you Kendall. Karsten, where are you going to go between Kendall and Tom?
Yeah. This one also really hurts because I'm actually a huge Tom fan. Tom is one of my favorite characters. I mean, he's an idiot. He's like so pathetic.
So is Greg, and we love Greg.
I mean, my favorite Tom scene is at the bachelor party where he swallows his own.
He's full of himself. He's full of himself.
Yes. Full of himself. It's such a perfect episode for Tom, and he only gets better. Like, he only continues to surprise you. But Kendall is Kendall. Like, he's daddy's number one boy. He's like, he's just the best. Yeah, I have to go Kendall. I'm sure we're going to talk about him some more, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
To honor Tom had that killer sequence in that scene at the beachside with what's her name, with Shiv.
Shiv.
Super emotional. I was like, come on, the show's getting me again. Really feeling bad for Tom. I personally think the best Tom episode is when they're under lockdown in the building.
Yes.
No reason.
Oh man, he's
reason to be that good. That episode alone almost makes me choose him.
In the good room?
Almost makes me choose him over Kendall. But at the end of the day, the show begins with the man. I hope it ends with the man. Season 2 ended with probably one of the best scenes I've seen in television recently. It's Kendall.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to give Tom a little more love on his way out, I've noticed that, like, while the show is really known for its, like, insults, he's not as much of, like, the insulty type. I think a lot of his best lines are when he tries to just give a summation of the situation. When they go on that trip to Europe, and he goes, a nice bit of war-torn, spooky, anti-Semitic, vampire-y, authoritarian Europe. Like, his little descriptors are always great. So shouts to Tom's Wambsgans. Yeah. Shouts to Matthew McFadyen. We love that performance. We love that character. The last matchup of this round is Connor Roy between Shiv Roy. Really interesting matchup between siblings who are looking for their own place in the whole empire. Art, why don't you start us off?
Shiv.
Connor or Shiv?
Shiv.
Easy. Yeah, you're not a Connor believer. It seems.
He has this one line where he talks about what he believes love is with his girl, and I thought I literally rewinded it because I couldn't believe the stuff that comes out of his mouth. His are lines that are just weird. You don't expect it to have even been written. Like, you feel that some of these characters come up with weird stuff on the spot. His is like they purposefully go out of their way to make it sound so weird, and I love what he serves in the story. Guys, we're talking about Shiv. Yeah. In my opinion, tied with Gerri as the best character in this entire show. She kills it. So Shiv. But y'all are Connor believers.
Yeah, I mean, but it's Shiv. It's Shiv.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, we really haven't talked about Shiv all that much yet.
Because we're saving it.
She also has one of, I would say, the weirdest relationships with her dad that, I don't know, I'm honestly scared to see where it goes because it's very much like it's the least predictable out of all of them. You can kind of like you kind of know how Logan feels about Kendall and Roman and I guess Connor, but Shiv, he's like, you really don't know what he actually thinks of her or what he wants from her.
Is he using her? Exactly.
It's like, and she's so confident yet so out of touch that it's like it makes for just an amazing character.
That's what Marcia told her.
Yeah.
Yeah, they portray Shiv as this like ultra competent person, but I think over and over again they kind of show her failing to like win her way in terms of leveraging her power or like trying to take her own piece of the pie and like not really getting it ultimately. So I'm curious to see how they develop Shiv. We'll talk a little bit more about her in that next matchup because that's an interesting matchup for the future of the show too. But first we get to Greg versus Roman. Maybe a matchup of the funniest character on Succession. I think that's arguable here.
Mm-hmm.
I am personally going to go with Roman in that I think while both of these characters bring a really like off-kilter, hilarious dynamic, Roman is a really complex person, and kind of that little brother energy that he brings to the group of sort of needing to seem special. And I also really love when they talk about the being locked in the cage game thing, and there's ultimately the ultimate reveal of him asking for it. I think also speaks to a lot of the things that have happened with this character. He's just so complex and so interesting consistently that I'm going to go with him here. But what about you, Karsten? Who are you going between Roman and Greg?
This is also, I mean, I could go either
Very
way,
hard.
You know what I mean? But I think what I like about Greg so much, although Roman is unarguably the more complex, probably the most complex character, I think Greg is a great... I said this in my Succession video, but like he's the one character who started like at the bottom of the line and at like the normal person level, whatever that means.
Yeah.
It's like he
was Dogbert.
Yeah, I don't want to say Greg's normal, but he sort of like knows what it means to be a normal person in this society, and the show just takes him and like watches. You see him like transform into this like evil member of the family, like right in front of you, and I think that's why I like watching Greg so much, is because he's easy to mold, but also has the same like grit that like gets him to go this far up the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I just think that's, I don't know, I think he has a lot more in store.
I agree.
In a negative way. I don't think Greg is like the positive guy everyone makes him out to be, but I think he's a really good character.
He has the potential to be the most corrupted,
right?
Over the events of the show.
That pendulum's going to swing, and all of a sudden, Cousin Greg's not going to be the Cousin Greg we knew the first.
In season 1, he couldn't eat any more songbird, and by season 5, he's just going to be eating all the songbirds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, personally, I have to go with Greg for now.
All right.
It's tough.
Okay.
It's really tough.
Art, it's down to you.
When Roman blew up that rocket.
Literally.
I was like, it's got to be this guy right here. Greg is great, don't get me wrong, but Roman's on another level.
Yep.
So, I wish the best for Greg.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's one of those amazing things about Succession, in that they have this whole storyline about Roman overseeing the launch of the shuttle, and it's kind of like just told in like interstitials and lines that get you between the other scenes, right? Like there's no big scene of Roman visiting the launch site or whatever. It's like a little thing he looks at his phone while he's in the bathroom.
Yeah.
He just puts it away. But to me, Roman has been the lead of all of his scenes. Greg is a fantastic supporting character, but many times he's just behind Tom. Many times he's just, trying to finagle his way in between another meeting that's happening. But I would say Greg is one of the best supporting characters if Gerri didn't exist. But in terms of just the best characters overall, Roman steals and leads every scene that he's in my opinion.
Yep.
All right. Let's get to Kendall versus Shiv, the
Zach.
matchup over
Don't
Logan's
Zach.
favorite. Art, why don't you start us off? What do you think?
Shiv is the best character in Succession because she is everything Succession is about. Everything that she's the good and bad in all of the kids, I believe, packaged into one. I think she's not only smarter than her own good, but I don't think she realizes that she's not as smart as what has been outside of her gated worldview. And I'm very curious to see what it's going to be like now that she is truly pitted against her brother. Like, they've all been fighting for the same thing, but now it's truly going to be like, all right, that guy has crossed the line. Now it really is her versus Kendall, And I'm excited for her to lead the pack on that end. I think it's going to be a fantastic civil war, and literally it is going to be between Shiv and Kendall, and I am rooting for Shiv all the way.
Ah, God.
Wow. What do you think, Karsten? I
mean, you make a really compelling argument there, because Shiv is... That's the tough thing, though. Anytime you're like, Shiv is a little bit more, a little bit less oblivious than Kendall, you remember just like how many steps behind Kendall she is at the same time. Because I'm like, yeah, she seems like she knows the system really well and like is very good at what she does, but also like you said, she's extremely gated, and Kendall seems to like have a better worldview, but at the same time he's so simple-minded and will continue fucking up for the same goal that he can't seem to understand, like,
which makes him great.
it's so fun to watch, but I gotta go Kendall.
Fair.
He did the rap, you know. Shiv would never do the rap.
Yeah, she wouldn't.
She would not. And I read the interview with Jeremy Strong about the rap and how it's like he never performed that like it was like a joke or anything. He was like, that was very much like Kendall trying to impress his dad. And I'm like, that's so sad. And that's like every scene of him in the show. It's just constantly trying to like impress his dad in a different way, but also like take him down at the same time. And he's just got such a mess of a head. And I feel for him so hard. Whereas Shiv, I'm like, come on. You know.
And he's on default all of season 2. So it's obviously fair for him and Shiv to go on. But the fact that Shiv has not taken a break in any season, and this man was practically a zombie all of season 2.
Yeah.
It shows how great of a character he is. Like,
it's going to be an insane season.
Kendall season 3 and Shiv season 3 is going to be fantastic. We will tally the scores every week, gentlemen, to see who wins Shiv or Kendall. But Zach...
Yeah, we're gonna need our power player of the week going on our succession
the web
watches.
Plays.
All right, you left a tough decision to me between Kendall and Shiv, and it is very tough because they are both extremely compelling characters. Maybe I'm a little bit more drawn to the James Murdochian-ness of Kendall's character, but. I think we go through so much with Kendall, and just seeing how high the high and how low the lows are makes him so dynamic to watch on this show. And I think Karsten was sort of hinting at, like, he ends up giving you some really fun scenes too. Like, I don't know if Shiv has done anything quite as silly and fun as the rap. Yet there's also the devastating moments, like, you know, the whole end of the season 1 finale,
yes.
and that just being like. That just gripping you and knowing like he's put himself against a wall and now is indebted for it just in this crazy way to his family. I don't know. Kendall is such a dynamic character, such a compelling character.
If I may, Zach.
I think I got to go with Kendall
here. If I may, Zach.
Yeah, please.
Shiv's outfits.
Oh, man.
Yeah, she may never do the rap. That's because she's dripped down, bro. Best outfits on the show. Not even close.
Yeah, and it's funny because they kind of shifted her fashion style. You know, she shows up in the first episode with like these kind of frumpy sweaters, and I think it's like 3 episodes in, somebody is like, "What are you even wearing? Like, who is this?" Yeah,
this whole catalog's just following the stuff that she wears. The people trying to get the replicas. It's like the James Bond, Tom Ford stuff. Everyone's trying to reenact it there. So I'm just saying, I'm just saying she's gonna bring that in.
Yeah,
season 3.
Look, I don't think there's really a wrong choice here, but I'm sticking with the family, sticking with the number 1 boy. I'm going with Kendall.
Fair.
For our matchup here. Our finals are down to Roman and Kendall. And before we ask that question, who are you maybe the most surprised did not make it all the way to the final round here? I know you were talking about getting Gerri in here, getting Shiv in here. What do you think, Art?
Logan. I know I love Gerri.
Yeah.
I know I love Marcia. Logan.
Yeah.
He's in charge still, isn't he?
Yes, I acted like he had a bad scene. He's never had a bad scene. Even when he's pooping his pants, it's still like, what's going to go on? Is this it? Who's about to be in charge? Logan's a powerhouse of a performance. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can even argue that in that first season, those first couple of episodes don't quite get the ball rolling as much as when he's back up and he's back in the action, and like having that centering presence there. Just kind of everybody operates around him. So yeah, maybe a little surprising that we didn't go with Logan, because he's really great.
Plays with Roman when he tells him, it's like, we got that deal, and Roman's like, yeah, it's great, and he tells him, no, we didn't, because they left happy, and if they're smiling, then we didn't get the deal we're supposed to get. And I'm like, he's the harshest one there, and no one's lived up to that level yet. So
yeah,
he's definitely like the Gordon Gekko of this show, in that like some finance bro is going to get the wrong message from a lot of his quotes.
Be inspired.
How about you, Karsten? Anybody else that you think maybe deserved a shot at this final round but didn't get here?
I really, when I said at the beginning of the episode that I thought it was going to be two people, I thought it was going to be Greg and Kendall. But that was just my personal taste. I didn't take into consideration how great of a character Roman is. But yeah, I don't know. I assumed, because Greg, when you were kind of dishing out the criteria earlier, you were like, who's the funniest character? Who's like one of the most complex characters? Who has the best scenes? And in my opinion, like, it's Greg. Like, he's got like fives all around. But I guess, yeah, I can't deny that Roman is probably the better character out of that matchup.
You'd have Greg beat Logan?
Yeah. I mean, Logan is such a good character, but I think he suffers from being a little one-noted sometimes for me.
Okay.
It's like he can only say his fuck-offs do not hit the same way they used to. I'm like, yeah, we get it. But like, again, just based off the teaser for season 3, he seems like he really like goes off his leash and is just I'm terrified, really. But yeah.
All right, let's get into that final matchup. Roman Roy versus Kendall Roy. Kieran Culkin versus Jeremy Strong. I think two of my more favorite performances on TV right now. It's definitely hard to choose because they are such different characters, although the dynamic between them is also very fun. Was it Karsten who mentioned that scene where Kendall steps up to defend Roman? Like, there is that weird like bond they share, but how they kind of get very frustrated with each other along the process. They're really fun to watch opposite each other. Really fun to watch on their own too. I think, if you gotta go with one here, it may be the boring option, but like, Kendall kind of is the focus of the show. If there is a main character, he gets all the big moments, all the dramatic narrative. It kind of swings around him. It's hard for me to choose Roman above Kendall, given that the finales are both centered around these huge things that are put into motion because of Kendall. So I don't know, guys. Are either of you going to go with Roman here, or is it going to be a clean sweep for Kendall?
Art, take this one first.
You were saying that I agree, Kendo is the lead. Kendo's the one is carrying the show. He's the beginning, first person we see, last person at the end. But Roman's the glue, and if you don't have the glue, does it all stick together? If there isn't one person who's really trying to care for the rest of the family and showing that emotion, do you really care for the family? While they're all falling apart and doing their thing, Roman's the one who tries to show some empathy throughout it. It is through his character that you actually see the most empathetic moments from some of the other ones. It is through him that you're seeing how deep the psyche of growing up within this household has been. I think he is the funniest character. I think there's a reason why he beat Logan in the round that we had here, and he's made it all the way to the finals. And I think that there's still the potential for him to even be a bigger part, because right now he's like I'd say third in the siblings in terms of who's actually trying to do stuff, right? He is still behind leader-wise Shiv and Kendall, but when it comes down to them, I think he is the one who's able to bring the whole show together the best. I think he has some of the best interactions with everybody. I feel like he's the one who's interacted with the most characters as well. I'm sorry, Zach. I think I would give it to Roman. I still have faith in Roman.
Yeah, would we all love Gerri as much as we do if he weren't Gerri's little slime puppy?
And I'm fully aware of that, yeah.
Man, I let you go first, Art, to give myself more time to think, but you only made this. You only made this worse. You really fucked me over.
Nicholas Britell's score.
Yeah.
Yeah, the score. That's the best character. No, I don't know. The thing about Kendall is that I think I would agree that it's like he's a little bit more detached from the rest of the characters compared to Roman. I think that's a really good point that Roman does kind of see.
Yeah.
He kind of ends up in every like sector. I don't know what a better word is, but Kendall, I don't know. He's way more nuanced than Roman is to me. I think he can be a really funny character, even if it's like unintentional. But yeah, I think there's a moment where, you know, Roman seems to be creeping his way up. It might be the Boar on the Floor episode, where he's got the power over Kendall, over like something, but then Logan just immediately snaps at Roman and kind of puts him in his place and is like, you're never gonna be like whatever Kendall is, like you're just Roman. And I think that's like, I think Roman's stuck in whatever this place is, which might make for a really good season 3 because he has to like prove himself or whatever. But I think Kendall's already been through that, and Kendall's been put in his place so many times to where it's like he's transcended whatever the rest of the family's stuck in. And that's what he's sort of like moved so far up the ladder and not succeeded that he's like a separate being. And
that's a good point.
I just think he's one of the best characters ever. And yeah, I gotta go with Kendall.
Beautiful.
I'm so sorry. It also would have been so telling if we made Kendall get this far up the bracket and then pushed him out. Like, that would have just been the cherry on top.
That might have been the actual appropriate ending for a Succession podcast.
You said you wanted Greg and Kendall in the finale. If it did come down to Greg and Kendall, would you have done that, though?
If I picked Greg over Kendall, I would not be surprised if that's how the actual show goes down. And
ends up being Greg.
That's the plan for season 6.
Yeah. I'm like got chills. This was a really intense experience.
Yeah. It's not easy killing this many darlings, especially with a show like Succession, which is just so good. Yeah, I feel happy about this. I think we did end up with the right calls, as tough as these decisions were to make. You know, Kendall does seem like he's going to be the number one boy in the end, so this all makes sense.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of time at the end here. Just want to ask, are there any big questions y'all have going into season 3? What are the lingering questions, the lingering storylines that are at the top of your brain? And like, obviously the big one being like team Kendall versus team Logan, and how everybody will fall on those sides of the battle lines. But what about some of the other storylines that have you intrigued? What are you thinking about for season 3? Karsten?
I think Shiv and Tom are my focus, just because they really ended season 2 like they were going to kill off Tom. Not kill him off, but like just...
Right.
He really like felt like he's had a whole arc where he was like kind of on his way out the door by then. And I'm just like...
A different show might have cut ties with his character
totally
at that moment.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm very like... Are they going to stay together? Like, what is the future of that marriage, if you can even call it that? Like, what does that look like? I have no idea what they're going to do with Tom. So I'm really excited to see where they go with that. But yeah.
Art?
Just the battle lines. Like, I'm curious if now that they're split, someone like Gil ends up going with what's-in-face Kendall, and then if someone like Stewy ends up going with, you know, Logan and them, because he would have things against his best friend that he would know, and I think that's going to make for very interesting battle.
Yeah.
Also, Tom versus Greg. It's no longer Greg under Tom. It's Tom versus Greg, I feel. That's what it's going to end up being, so that'll be a delight.
Ugh.
Yeah, the posters kind of hinted at that, I think, too.
So-
I've stayed away from most of the trailers, but I don't know if you were saying the teasers have hinted at some other stuff. You're seeing also the teasers hinted at some Connor stuff. I'm definitely curious in how they will advance Connor's different subplots. I think,
Sure.
The way that they ultimately tried to integrate him with the rest of the family is always interesting. So, yeah, I mean, there's just so much going on a show like Succession. I think there's just a lot of things to be really excited for this upcoming season. Looking back, do you guys have a favorite episode from the first 2 seasons? Something that was maybe the best, most dynamic hour? I mean, there's so many to choose from. The finales, of course, are really great. I think if I got to choose any episode, it's Which Side Are You On from season 1? Oh. Just culminating in that big board vote. And Kendall running through the streets of New York to try and make it there. It's so dramatic, so I don't know, so interesting, so dynamic. I love that episode. But what about you guys? Art, do you have a favorite episode?
I think it was the wedding reception one where Gil's even over at the house, and I think the mom's over at the house, and they have a whole fight on the staircase as well. I don't know. I really like that whole party dynamic and how everything's happening, because like everyone's watching the character that they want to interact with, that they're trying to keep an eye on from across the room. So probably that one, because it also has a pretty good ending as well.
Yeah. I think the boring answer would be the season 1 finale, but that is like one of the few times like
it's really good.
I watched a show and went to bed like kind of really disturbed and like uneasy. I was like, Jesus, that was a lot. But I think the bachelor party episode is also extremely good. It's so funny, and the way it ends, it's just that shot of all the guys like standing outside, lined up together, and Greg's like this giant tall. I think that they're all like doing different things in that small moment, and it really was the first time I was watching the show where I was like, I fucking love this. This show's really working for me. Yeah, the boys all together.
The 1-2 of Austerlitz and then Prague, those 2 episodes, I think also come to really define what Succession does really well in season 3. Is like you find like an interesting location to throw all the characters in, and then you kind of just put a bunch of them there and have them interact. Like let's put them out in the desert. Let's throw them into a weird sex party. Let's put them in this resort in the Colorados or whatever it was. It creates a lot of the most fun.
They left the homies there
we
too.
Have in Succession.
They're like, oh, sorry, we didn't take them into account, and they just left
the fly guys
there.
The fly boys.
Fly guys.
Fly guys.
Oh, they're still there.
Man. Anyway, so much to look forward to in Succession season 3. Thank you so much for joining us with this, Karsten. But I think that's about all for this week's episode. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd at @ZShevich. Karsten, where can people check out more from you?
You can search me on YouTube, Karsten Runquist. It's just my name. Or you know what? I'm gonna keep plugging our podcast, the Karstcast. My podcast with Jeff.
Yeah.
We got a lot of fun stuff going on.
Got to get Jeff
there.
back on here too.
Oh yeah. I think he's back in America now. So that's cool.
Awesome.
And he's got to catch up on Succession.
Oh
he
my
needs to
God.
sit down. He needs to binge it. Once he starts it,
I've been begging him to start it.
We'll give him the HBO password.
Yeah. But thank you guys for having me. Really.
I know. Thank you,
I
man.
love being on here.
Of course. Always a pleasure to have you on, Karsten. Art, where can people find more from you?
You can find me over at LME Explain on pretty much all the socials, but every week watching HBO, because you don't get a character bracket like this that's really down to the wire unless it's a series that's on HBO. The best out there.
Absolutely.
Which we cover every week here on the Intercut Podcast.
Yes. You can listen to every episode of Intercut on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, whatever your favorite podcatcher is. I like Overcast. And then make sure you subscribe not just to the audio podcast, but to the video feed as well on youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can watch our bright smiling faces as we break down the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of Intercut every Monday. Maybe we'll be getting into some Succession recap podcasts, the keys to Succession or something like that in the future. I don't know. So please leave us a comment, like the the videos and consider heading over to iTunes to give us a much requested 5-star review. Like our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, all of them, including our Patreon, are at IntercutPod, and you can get updates throughout the week there from me, from Art, from Karsten, from all the guests that we feature here on Intercut. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, fuck off.